My name is Conyer Samuel Cohen. I sit here today because of my great-grandfather Samuel Cohen, who immigrated to the United States from Błaszczak, Poland in the 1920s to Ellis Island. Today we're going to rewind history to take a look at why my grandfather left his home and family and boarded a boat destined to America. We have the great opportunity to sit down with the Holocaust survivor Henry Kress. Henry was born in Snowswick, Poland. Henry was born on July 26, 1924. Henry is now 93 years old, yet he remembers the Holocaust like yesterday. He remembers the rise of Hitler's power in Poland. He remembers the Nazi troops invading his homeland. He remembers the terror and destruction of one of the worst genocides in world history. The conflict and compromise of this horrible time in world history was centered around the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was created at the end of World War I in an attempt to create a compromise and put an end to the war. The Allied powers, including France, Britain, the Soviet Union, and the U.S., convened in the city of Versailles at the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles, France. They gathered in order to set guidelines so future wars would be prevented. On June 28, 1919, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. The war officially ended. The treaty separated the country of Germany in order to repay war debts, losing 10% of territorial land. Germany, the aggressor in the war, was ordered to compensate for the losses of the war. Germans referred to the treaty as the unhappy compromise. They were upset because they lost land, suffered financial strain, and their military was restricted. Ultimately, the Treaty of Versailles, although an attempt to compromise, led to genocidal conflict in Poland, resulting in the worst Jewish conflict in world history, the Holocaust.
In 1 hour, everything was over. In 1 hour, I lost my mother, I lost my father, I lost my grandfather, and I lost them forever. But when we came to Auschwitz, I came with my mother, and I asked the prisoners who already were where they were there, so I already knew. And I said, when will I see my mother? And they showed me the chimney. I should look, and there where she went, to the gas chambers. I know I'm not going to survive, but you are young, you try to survive. That was the last words of my mother. And this was the beginning of Auschwitz. And I was then 16, and I couldn't understand what is going on. Because I don't think so that anybody, no matter how smart he is, would know to get in to a situation like that. And there was only one choice. If you want to live, then continue living and see what's going to happen, or commit suicide. The camp was wired all around with electric wire. So, and then life was not so good. Food was very scarce. We didn't know what to expect. But we found out pretty soon that the end wouldn't be too good. And if you ask me what I was thinking, when I was there for 5 years, I don't know how I survived. So I was lucky to survive, not smart. Whatever will be, will be. And then one day in January 1945, the Germans evacuated Auschwitz. And they took us on a walk to a train station. Well, on the way was in January 27 when the Russians came in and liberated the camp. But I ran away a little before that. Germany was building an army and tanks nobody knew. And nobody knew why. And Hitler decided when he got won the election, all of a sudden he came up with an army with tanks and everything nobody knew and nobody had anything. So we first went and took Czechoslovakia. Then you came and took Poland. And Hitler was a very good speaker. When Hitler was speaking, there were at least 1 million people in the street to listen to his speech. The people who didn't have a radio. I don't know how to describe him, why he did it, we have no idea. Nobody will ever know. I really don't know. I don't know if the treaty was good or bad, but it didn't work out.
Although an attempt at a peace compromise, the Treaty of Versailles caused much conflict in Poland and the world as a Holocaust survivor Henry Kress just conveyed. The peace compromise treated Germany harshly according to the German people. The Treaty of Versailles was forced upon Germany with an ultimatum of signing it or get invaded. Thus, from onset, the peace compromise was not a compromise by mutual concession as one should be. Rather, Germany was dictated the terms of the peace treaty, which led to conflict rather than resolution. Instead of preventing another world war, the treaty caused so much angst through Germany that Adolf Hitler rose to power. Hitler capitalized on the German people's bitter resentment towards the treaty's clauses. The Germans were upset and felt the treaty was unfair as it took Germany territory, including Poland, and gave it to the other countries. The consequences of the failed compromise resulted in the worst genocide in Jewish history, the Holocaust. The effect on Poland was grave as described by Henry, as he personally endured the Auschwitz concentration camps. Henry explained that the Germans came into their house and searched and pillaged whatever they wanted. In the town, they broke into stores and hit people with rifles. Food was scarce. They were ordered to wear the bands with the Star of David. The towns were bombed and Henry's parents were ultimately sent to the gas chambers. Henry endured human suffering beyond belief. Henry also mentioned that no one really understood why the Holocaust transpired. The Treaty of Versailles played a role in Germany's political struggles. Henry's family, along with my great-grandfather's parents and relatives, were not so fortunate. Over 6 million Jewish families were not so fortunate either. Henry is grateful for his liberation from the horrible German concentration camps, and thus Henry did honor his mother's dying wishes. He survived the Holocaust. Thus, the Treaty of Versailles was a contributing factor to World War II and the rise of Hitler's power. Unfortunately, as Henry expressed today, there is not always a reason to such horrifying conflict. Henry suggested that we cannot fully comprehend why the Holocaust happened, as we cannot comprehend how humans can engage in such horrible treatment of one another. We do not know why Germans felt so compelled to send people to human ovens, as Henry said. Even though the treaty was an attempt to compromise, it failed. The conflict that rose from the unrest in Germany was deplorable. Sadly, civil unrest continues today. Why do people do bad things? According to Henry, there is no understandable reason for his own personal suffering. One could not fathom the events that transpired. The same remains today. We do not understand why terrorists plot evil crimes. We cannot comprehend why a gunman opens fire on a church or a concert or a school. We have no words for the evil that plagues our world. We can only be like Henry, who is grateful for his life, grateful for his survival.
If you came to America from a situation like this, you should have kissed the ground 3 times a day. That's what I believe. I still believe in that. And thank God it worked out fine.